Picture this. 10 seconds. That's all you have left. Your heart has stopped beating. Your lungs have drawn their final breath. And your brain is shutting down, neuron by neuron. But here's what no one tells you about those final 10 seconds of life. Your soul, your consciousness, your very essence, is about to embark on the most extraordinary journey imaginable. And what happens next will shatter everything you thought you knew about death, consciousness, and the nature of reality itself. This isn't just another story about dying. This is about the most profound mystery of human existence. What really happens when the body fails, but the soul remains? Where does your consciousness go in those crucial final moments? And why do some people return from clinical death with memories so vivid, so detailed, that they forever change how we understand life itself? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will challenge your deepest beliefs about existence, death, and what lies beyond. The setting is a sterile hospital room. Fluorescent lights humming overhead. Machines beeping steadily, in rhythm with a failing heart. But this isn't a scene of despair. This is ground zero for one of the most fascinating psychological and spiritual phenomena known to humanity. The dying process isn't just a biological shutdown. It's a psychological transformation that unfolds in stages, each one more mysterious than the last. Scientists have discovered that during the dying process, the brain doesn't simply switch off like a light bulb. Instead, it undergoes a complex series of changes that may actually enhance consciousness in ways we're only beginning to understand. Dr. Sam Parnia, a leading researcher in consciousness studies, has documented cases where patients show increased brain activity, even after their hearts have stopped. The dying brain, it seems, is far from quiet. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. Ancient wisdom traditions from around the world have long described the dying process, not as an end, but as a transition. The Tibetan Book of the Dead speaks of intermediate states between life and death. Egyptian burial texts describe the soul's journey through various realms. Even modern near-death experience research suggests that consciousness doesn't simply vanish when the body fails. Consider Sarah, a 34-year-old teacher who suffered massive cardiac arrest during routine surgery. For 12 minutes, she was clinically dead. No heartbeat. No brain activity that doctors could measure. Yet during those 12 minutes, Sarah experienced what she described as the most vivid, real experience of her entire life. She found herself floating above her body, watching doctors frantically work to revive her. Then something extraordinary happened. The first seconds of the dying process begin with what researchers call the life review. But this isn't the Hollywood version, where your life flashes before your eyes in random snippets. According to those who've experienced it and returned, the life review is an incredibly detailed, emotionally charged re-experiencing of every significant moment of your existence. You don't just remember events. You feel them again, but this time from the perspective of everyone involved. Imagine reliving that moment when you were 8 years old, and you helped an elderly neighbor carry groceries up the stairs. But now, you don't just remember your own feelings of pride and kindness. You experience the deep gratitude and relief of that elderly woman, whose arthritis made each step agony. You feel how your simple act of kindness brightened her entire week, maybe even her entire month. But the life review isn't just about the good moments. Sarah described experiencing every hurtful word she'd ever spoken, every moment of selfishness or cruelty, but from the recipient's perspective. She felt the sting of harsh words she'd spoken to her teenage daughter during an argument. She experienced the disappointment her husband felt when she'd broken an important promise. The psychological impact was profound, not as judgment or punishment, but as complete understanding. Dr. Kenneth Ring, who has studied thousands of near-death experiences, notes that this life review serves a crucial psychological function. It's not about guilt or shame. It's about integration, understanding, and the soul's preparation for whatever comes next. The dying consciousness seems to process and reconcile the entire human experience, in moments that feel like hours or even years to the experiencer. As the life review unfolds, something even more extraordinary begins to happen. The boundaries of individual consciousness start to dissolve. Sarah found herself not just reviewing her own life, but somehow connected to a vast network of consciousness that included everyone she'd ever encountered. She could feel the ripple effects of her actions spreading out like waves through time and space. This is where psychology meets mysticism in the most profound way imaginable. Carl Jung wrote about the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of human experience and wisdom. During the dying process, many people report accessing something that sounds remarkably similar to Jung's description. They describe feeling connected to all of humanity, understanding their place in the grand tapestry of existence. But here's where the story takes an even more fascinating turn. After the life review, after the dissolution of ego boundaries, something happens that defies every conventional understanding of consciousness and death. The dying person encounters what can only be described as other intelligences. Sarah's experience moved into its second phase, around what would have been the 4th minute of her clinical death. The hospital room, her body, even the life review itself, began to fade. She found herself in what she could only describe as a realm of pure light and consciousness. But this wasn't empty space. It was populated. The beings she encountered weren't human, at least not in any conventional sense. They communicated without words, transmitting complex ideas and emotions directly into her consciousness. They knew everything about her, understood her completely, yet radiated nothing but unconditional love and acceptance. One being, whom she felt was her guide, began showing her something that would forever change her understanding of existence itself. These encounters with non-physical beings are reported by people from every cultural background, every religious tradition, every level of education. The consistency of these reports across thousands of documented cases suggests something far more significant than hallucination or wish fulfillment. Dr. Jeffrey Long, who has collected over 5,000 near-death experience accounts, notes that these beings often provide information that the dying person couldn't have known through conventional means. The beings Sarah encountered showed her what she described as the architecture of reality. She saw how consciousness creates physical experience, how thoughts and emotions ripple through dimensions she never knew existed, how individual lives are interconnected in ways that boggle the human mind. They showed her that death is not an ending, but a graduation, a movement from one state of consciousness to another. But perhaps most importantly, they revealed to her the true nature of time itself. In the realm she was experiencing, past, present, and future existed simultaneously. She could see her entire life, not as a linear progression, but as a complete tapestry, where every moment existed at once. She understood that from this perspective, nothing is ever truly lost. No experience is ever wasted. And every soul's journey serves a purpose in the grand design of existence. This revelation about the nature of time helps explain one of the most puzzling aspects of near-death experiences. How can someone experience hours or even years of subjective time during only minutes of clinical death? The answer seems to be that consciousness, when freed from the constraints of the physical brain, operates according to different laws entirely. As Sarah's experience moved into what would have been the 7th minute of her clinical death, she was shown something that shook her to her core. The beings revealed to her what they called the choice point. Every soul, they explained, reaches a moment during the dying process where they must decide whether to continue into whatever lies beyond, or return to physical life to complete unfinished business. This choice point represents one of the most psychologically profound moments imaginable. The soul, now fully aware of its true nature, must weigh the indescribable peace and understanding of the spiritual realm against the often painful and challenging experience of human life. Sarah was shown her life from a perspective she'd never imagined, seeing how her future choices would ripple out to affect countless other people. She saw her teenage daughter, struggling with depression and self-doubt, desperately needing her mother's guidance through the difficult years ahead. She witnessed her husband's grief, and how her death would fundamentally alter his life path. Most significantly, she was shown a student in her classroom, a troubled boy named Marcus, whom she hadn't paid much attention to. She saw how her continued presence in his life would eventually save him from a path towards self-destruction. The psychological weight of this choice cannot be overstated. Here was complete knowledge, absolute peace, and the promise of existence beyond anything human experience could offer. Yet the pull of unfinished earthly business, of love, responsibility, and service to others, created a tension that Sarah described as the most difficult moment of her existence. Dr. Raymond Moody, who coined the term near-death experience, has documented hundreds of cases where people describe this exact choice point. Some choose to continue on, accepting that their earthly journey is complete. Others, like Sarah, choose to return, often with a completely transformed understanding of life's purpose and meaning. But the choice isn't made in isolation. The beings surrounding Sarah didn't pressure her or judge her potential decision. Instead, they helped her understand the full implications of both paths. If she chose to continue, her soul would evolve to new levels of existence, free from the limitations and pain of physical life. If she returned, she would carry with her the memory of this experience, but would also face the challenge of integrating cosmic consciousness into everyday human existence. Sarah's decision came not from obligation or guilt, but from love. She realized that her greatest joy, even in this realm of indescribable bliss, came from the opportunity to serve others, to be part of the intricate web of healing and growth that defines human experience. She chose to return. The journey back to physical life was jarring in ways Sarah struggled to put into words. Imagine trying to squeeze the ocean into a teacup, and you begin to understand the challenge of fitting cosmic consciousness back into a human brain. The beings who had become her guides helped ease this transition, but warned her that integrating this experience would be one of her life's greatest challenges. As her consciousness re-entered her body, Sarah experienced what she described as a crushing sensation, as if she was being compressed into a space far too small to contain who she had become. The unlimited awareness she'd experienced was suddenly confined to the 5 senses and the linear thinking of the physical brain. The unconditional love that had surrounded her was replaced by the beeping of machines and the concerned voices of medical staff. But she hadn't returned empty-handed. The knowledge and understanding she'd gained remained, though now filtered through human consciousness. She understood that her job was not just to live, but to remember, to carry forward the insights she'd received, and to help others understand that death is not the end of consciousness, but its transformation into something far more magnificent. This integration process represents a profound psychological challenge that many near-death experiencers face. Dr. P.M.H. Atwater, herself a near-death experiencer who went on to study the phenomenon extensively, describes the return to ordinary consciousness as requiring a complete rebuilding of one's sense of identity and purpose. Everything that once seemed important pales in comparison to what was experienced during those moments of expanded consciousness. Sarah's story illustrates the final phase of the dying process, the integration of cosmic awareness with human existence. For those who return from clinical death, this integration becomes the work of a lifetime. They must find ways to live in a world that often dismisses or misunderstands their experiences, while carrying forward the profound truths they've encountered. But what about those who don't return? What happens to consciousness in those final seconds, when the choice is made to continue beyond physical life? While we can only speculate, based on the consistent reports of near-death experiencers, the picture that emerges is one of continued evolution and growth. The beings that Sarah encountered suggested that consciousness doesn't simply disappear at death, but transitions into new forms of existence. They described realms of learning and growth, where souls continue to evolve, where the lessons begun in physical life are expanded and deepened. Death, from this perspective, isn't an ending, but a commencement, a graduation into new levels of being. This understanding has profound implications for how we view not just death, but life itself. If consciousness survives physical death, if our actions and choices ripple out through dimensions we can barely imagine, then every moment of human existence takes on cosmic significance. The way we treat others, the love we give and receive, the growth we achieve through struggle and challenge, all of this becomes part of an eternal journey of evolution and understanding. The research into near-death experiences and the nature of consciousness during the dying process represents one of the most important frontiers in understanding human existence. Scientists like Dr. Bruce Grayson at the University of Virginia and Dr. Pim van Lommel in the Netherlands have conducted rigorous studies that challenge our fundamental assumptions about the relationship between brain and consciousness. Their research suggests that consciousness may not be produced by the brain, but rather received by it, much like a radio receives signals from broadcasting stations. If this is true, then the dying process isn't the end of consciousness, but simply the end of the brain's ability to receive and process it. Consciousness itself continues, freed from the limitations of physical existence. This scientific perspective aligns remarkably with the spiritual traditions that have long taught about the soul's survival after death. From the Hindu concept of the eternal Atman to the Christian belief in the immortal soul, humanity has always sensed that death is not the final chapter, but a transition to something greater. For Sarah, the integration of her near-death experience became the defining challenge of her remaining life. She found that conventional concerns about career advancement, material possessions, and social status had lost their power over her. Instead, she became focused on what she now understood to be the real purpose of human existence: growth, service, and the cultivation of love and understanding. She returned to her teaching position, but with a completely transformed approach. Every interaction with her students became an opportunity to plant seeds of kindness and understanding. She could see beyond their behavior, to their underlying struggles and needs. The troubled boy Marcus, whom she'd been shown during her near-death experience, became a special focus of her attention. Through patient mentoring and unconditional acceptance, she helped him discover his own worth and potential. But the integration wasn't without its challenges. Sarah struggled with what psychologists call spiritual emergency, the difficulty of processing profound spiritual experiences within the context of ordinary life. She felt isolated and misunderstood, as if she was living in two worlds simultaneously. The memory of the unconditional love and perfect understanding she'd experienced made the conflicts and misunderstandings of daily life particularly painful. Dr. Stanislav Grof, who has studied altered states of consciousness extensively, describes this integration challenge as one of the most significant aspects of profound spiritual experiences. The individual must learn to bridge two entirely different modes of consciousness, finding ways to live in the physical world, while maintaining connection to the expanded awareness they've encountered. Sarah found support through connecting with other near-death experiencers, and through practices that help her maintain connection to the expanded consciousness she'd touched. Meditation, service to others, creative expression. These became her tools for integration. She discovered that while she couldn't maintain the full intensity of the cosmic awareness she'd experienced, she could access glimpses of it through these practices. Her story also illustrates the ripple effects that one person's near-death experience can have on others. Her husband, initially skeptical of her account, gradually came to accept and even embrace the implications of her experience. Her daughter found in her mother's transformation a source of strength and inspiration during her own difficult teenage years. Her students, perhaps without fully understanding why, found in her classroom a safe space for growth and self-discovery. The psychological implications of near-death experiences extend far beyond the individuals who have them. If these experiences represent genuine encounters with expanded states of consciousness, they offer profound insights into the nature of human potential and the purpose of life itself. They suggest that the fears and anxieties that dominate so much of human experience are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of our true nature. Consider how differently we might live if we truly understood that consciousness survives death, that our actions have eternal significance, and that love is the fundamental force of the universe. The psychological transformation that near-death experiencers undergo offers a preview of how this understanding might reshape human experience. But perhaps most significantly, these experiences suggest that the dying process itself may serve as the ultimate teacher, offering in those final moments lessons about existence that could transform how we understand ourselves and our place in the cosmos. The soul's journey through the dying process reveals truths about consciousness, love, and the nature of reality that philosophers and scientists have struggled to understand for millennia. As we reach the climax of our exploration into those final 10 seconds of life, we encounter the most profound revelation of all. The dying process isn't something that happens to us. It's something we participate in actively, making choices that determine not just how we die, but how we continue to exist beyond physical death. The consciousness that experiences those final moments is the same consciousness that has been growing and evolving throughout our entire life. Every choice we make, every act of love or hatred, every moment of growth or stagnation prepares us for that ultimate transition. Sarah's experience reveals that in those final seconds, the soul doesn't become something new. It reveals what it has always been. The dying process strips away the illusions and limitations of physical existence to reveal the eternal, magnificent being that has been present all along. Death becomes not an ending, but an unveiling. Not a loss, but a homecoming to our true nature. The beings she encountered weren't strangers, but aspects of the cosmic family to which we all belong. The love she experienced wasn't foreign, but the recognition of what we truly are, beneath all the fear and separation of physical existence. The knowledge she gained wasn't new information, but the remembering of truths the soul has always known, but forgotten in the density of physical life. This understanding transforms not just how we view death, but how we approach every moment of life. If those final 10 seconds reveal our true nature, then every second leading up to them is an opportunity to align more closely with that truth. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, every choice to love rather than fear, prepares us for the ultimate revelation of who we really are. And here's the most beautiful part of Sarah's story, and the countless others like it. They didn't return from death to tell us about endings. They came back to reveal beginnings. They experienced the death of their physical bodies, only to discover the birth of their eternal selves. In those final 10 seconds, they didn't lose their lives. They found them. The real mystery isn't what happens to your soul in the last 10 seconds of life. The mystery is why we wait until those final moments to discover who we really are. Every near-death experience serves as a reminder that the magnificent being revealed in the dying process is the same being reading these words right now. The cosmic consciousness touched in those final seconds is the same consciousness that animates your current experience. Death, it seems, is not the opposite of life, but its deepest teacher, revealing in those final precious moments the truth that mystics and sages have pointed toward throughout history. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings having a human experience. And in those last 10 seconds, when all the illusions fall away, we finally remember who we've been all along. The soul doesn't go somewhere in those final moments. It comes home to itself, carrying forward all the love, growth, and wisdom gathered during its journey through physical existence. And somewhere in that cosmic homecoming, it begins to prepare for whatever magnificent adventure awaits in the endless exploration of consciousness that we call eternity.